Welcome back to Marauders Weekly. Well, the University of Mary cross-country team had one of its most successful outings in school history at the Roy Griak Invitational in Minneapolis last weekend. And now many Marauders fans were in Bismarck for homecoming that weekend. So to tell us a little more about the meet in Minneapolis, we have head coach Dennis Newell here and sophomore Lexi Zeis. So guys, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, well, Lexi, we'll start with you. First of all, congratulations on winning the Griak. Huge accomplishment. The first individual champion in UMary history. And I want to talk a little bit about training, because I know when we talked in the beginning of September, you had mentioned that you guys were doing a lot of hill training, headed to Spearfish for the first meet, and that was a little more hilly. And you said all that kind of helped you prepare for the Griak. How did it help you, and how did it help the team?
Felt a lot stronger. You could tell when you would watch some videos that we looked a lot stronger going up hills, and everybody said they felt really good going up them, and I could tell that all the training that we've been doing with the hills has really been paying off, and it's really good right now.
How did you feel going through the race? I mean, did you kind of going into it, I don't know if anyone ever expects to necessarily win, but what were you thinking going through that race?
Well, actually my goal going into the race was to take it out really easy, start out in the 30th area, but right when we started, within the first mile I was feeling really good, and I was like, if I just stay right here and then make the move after about 2 miles or so, that's pretty much felt pretty good during it.
Awesome. Well, Coach, so, going into this one, Lexi had mentioned when I talked to her before, just the goal this year is kind of she obviously wants to get back to nationals, but to get to the team to nationals. So what did you see from the team as a whole in this meet? Because obviously on the women's side, finishing 5th, great finish, and I believe it was the 5th year in a row that you guys have been in the top 5. So what did you see from the women's team?
A lot of fight, a lot of passion, a lot of team cohesion. Those are the 3 things that I think we can build on. Obviously there's talent, there's ability. I think the work we're doing is adequate and appropriate, but again, I probably look more at the intangibles and more of what I call the subjective value out of a team, and they're coachable. That's a huge thing, so they listen, and I thought everybody did their job pretty well on Saturday at the Griak, and again, if we continue to do that and make the progress I think we can make, I saw some good things to build on.
Well, switching gears a little bit to the men's side, with their best finish in school history at 8th at the Griak, what did you see from them, specifically from Chris Jessup, who's back now after being injured last year, and he was the top finisher, so what did you see there?
Just overall, I think our men's team is more mature. Again, a lot of similarities to the women, very coachable, but I think they understand things. I can say undoubtedly this is the best men's team I've coached in my career here, and it maybe doesn't look like that every week on paper, but again, there's a lot of things that I value as a coach and I see every day that they possess. And again, they listen, they do their job well, and I think we're going to see some really good things here postseason coming into conference.
Well, speaking of going into conference, only one more meet before that, the Jimmy Invitational. So, Lexi, what are kind of the goals or motivations here of the team with just one meet before the conference championships?
Well, we have the Jimmy Invitational coming up this weekend on Friday, and the course has changed, so it's changed to a pretty flat course, so it's nice to get away from the hills a little bit. Going into it, it's still our same goal, finish strong as a team every single time. Especially having that race, we go back to the same course for conference, which is very nice because we've already ran on it once, and so we know what it is, what it's like. And it's going to be a little bit smaller since it's just NSIC teams, but it's still going to be a pretty big weekend that weekend.
And now, Coach, going into the conference championships, I believe, talking to you guys earlier in the year, you had said that you have one less meet this year before the conference championships, at least on the women's side. So how did that affect training at all going into this year, or how are you expecting that to affect the performance at the conference championships?
It changes things, but it's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. So yeah, we have one competition less, but we make up for that in training, and we always work our way backwards from the final goal, which as nationals and then regions and then conference. And then just kind of fill in the pieces from there. Everything's a puzzle. So it doesn't really matter how many competitions, it just matters how many days I have with this team. Whether it's 107 or 111, and that's usually what it is. I have to take each one of those days and dissect it and say, what am I going to get out of this day? And so, short answer, it didn't really make a difference this year.
Okay. Well, with cross country, one of the biggest things every year, I think, is making sure everyone stays healthy, and that's a huge challenge. So how is the team looking this year in regards to that?
I think we're relatively healthy. We live in a sport, much like some others, that you're going to be competing when you're banged up a little bit, and we deal with everything from anemia to stress fractures to sprained ankles to psychological issues. I mean, you name it, we deal with it from an injury standpoint. And, I think it's up to us to be creative enough to find ways to stay healthy. And at the end of the day, we need to find a way to get the job done. And so, again, that's more on me than them. But sometimes it's motivation. Sometimes it's our healthcare professionals. There's a lot of different ways to do that.
Well, as Lexi said, this week, the University of Mary cross country team heading to the Jimmy Invitational on Friday, and after that, the Northern Sun Conference Championships later in the month. So Lexi and Coach Newell, thank you guys so much for coming on the show today.